Hello.
Bonjour.
Kronenbourg.
So these are the beers I bought for New Year's Eve that we never drank?
Because we drank too much of the white velvet?
Well, it's just velvet.
Disaronno
Velvet, yeah.
White velvet. Oh, it's a white bottle.
It's a white bottle, yeah. It's called Disaronno Velvet. We finished off the bottle, didn't we?
Yeah, we got pretty hammered on New Year's Eve. So welcome, cheers, everyone. Welcome to podcast number 8.
Flying through them, aren't we?
Yeah, we are number 8. Sue Gray Goose Inquiry. Do you care to explain that title?
Well, Sue Gray is all over the British news at the minute. Funny how Boris Johnson is at the centre of all this controversy, and yet the name that's so all over all the papers is Sue Gray. I think she's been described as the most influential person that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
Essentially, she is a civil servant who's doing an inquiry into all of the number 10 Conservative Party parties that took place during lockdown when everyone else wasn't allowed to meet people. We'll go into that later on. We've got a little section about what's been going on in the last fortnight or 3 weeks, so we'll cover that in a bit more detail later on.
The main reason we've put her as part of the title is mainly just because of the brand Gray Goose.
Yeah, the Gray Goose.
God, it'd have been so good if you'd have had Gray Goose.
I know, it would have been,
yeah, because it's your turn this week.
If only I'd have known.
Top shelf.
Maybe I did know.
So I'm welcome.
Yeah, I'm welcome too, yeah.
This is the Daena podcast. About yourself.
I think I'm just as welcome as you are, and it's a pleasure to be on the Daena podcast this week.
Should we just get straight into it?
Let's crack into it, yeah. Hopefully people know who we are by now.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Podcast 8. So this is being filmed live on Twitch. We go live on Twitch once every 2 weeks with a new podcast.
Ish.
Politics, sport.
Silliness, random news.
Booze.
Alcohol, yeah.
Movies, film.
Sometimes, yeah.
It's two of the same things.
Movies, films, those like really long TV programs, but like you go and see them at the cinema, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
That sort of things.
Yeah, the things that are like about 90 minutes long.
Yeah, sometimes a bit longer.
Oh my God. Salmon's just dropped his phone and smashed it up. Is it smashed up?
It's already been smashed.
Oh, it's already smashed. Did you smash it more?
You've been telling me to get a new phone for a long time.
So every time Salmon comes to my house, we do this podcast, he has to put his phone on charge. And all he's done is drive 10 minutes down the road.
However, it's been very smashed up. It's been eaten by my 1-year-old many times and it still works. So
eaten and digested many times?
Shat out a few times. Yeah.
I once swallowed a ringpull when I was about 6 years old. And what happened is, when you drink out of a can and sometimes people will take the ringpull out and put it in the can?
Yeah.
My sister did that and we were sharing like a can of Dr. Pepper.
So she did it before the drink was finished?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I drink like, I just like throw it down. I don't like sip through my lips. I just pour it into my mouth.
Yeah.
So obviously it went straight down.
So you notice it when you swallowed it?
I did, yeah. As soon as I did it, I was like, Mum, we were in the car as well. I was like, Mum, I've just swallowed a ringpull. And she's instantly thinking, great, my son's going to die.
Yeah.
He's going to rip his insides out. So I had to go to the toilet. They x-rayed it. They saw it was there on the x-ray, so to confirm it was there. And there was no action. All that had to happen was my mum had to search through my poo for 2 days. I wasn't on the script, but
we did put talking shit on the script.
Yeah. It's been 3 weeks actually since the last podcast. We had a little bit of an extended break.
So we're dying out on the festive one for a while because there was some good stuff in that. So we've got Top Shelf coming up, which is the alcohol section. Unfortunately, I haven't brought Gray Goose.
We haven't got Gray. No. That would have been so good.
We've got something else.
We've got to start thinking about the titles a day or two before the podcast.
A bit more planning required, I suppose.
Yeah. I feel like we're starting to run dry in the electric honk in the goose puns.
Nah,
maybe not.
Don't say that. Headliner, I've brought 3 quirky headlines. Daena will choose one of them and we'll Google it and see what the story's like. Then we'll look at what's happened in the last 3 weeks. Mainly going to be focused around the number 10 lockdown parties, isn't it? And Sue Gray. She is.
There's been a few shenanigans in the UK politics side. We don't always make it too political, but this one I think is going to be quite political.
Yeah, we try and keep the politics and the COVID chat to a minimum, really. unless there's like big political stories.
It's going to be difficult this time, though. We're not going to go into too much COVID, though, today.
No.
That's a bit
Yeah,
rubbish,
we'll stay
really.
away from that for a while. I'm going to talk about the Colston 4.
I have no clue what this is.
I'm glad you don't, because I'm looking forward to telling you about
Okay.
it. Prince Andrew's been in the news today quite a lot, hasn't he? I don't tend to follow the royal family news very much, but you can tell me what's happened.
Yeah, I think, we've got to mention it. We've got to talk a little bit about that. My pork scratchings this week is something that I never, ever thought I would talk about, ever. And it's just something that's piqued my interest recently. And I'm hoping you enjoy I'm going Maverick again, okay? But
Is
this
it gay
time,
porn?
It's not gay porn.
Okay.
It's bestiality.
Okay.
You've got something interesting for Goose News, right?
Goose News, yeah. It's going to be about barnacle geese.
Barnacle geese.
But it's worth sticking around for. It's a good one. Since our last podcast, I talked to you about nominative determinism. So for those who haven't heard it yet, nominative determinism is when your name has an effect on the outcome of your life.
This was pork scratchings, right?
Yeah, that was my pork scratchings last podcast. Talked about bradycardia, and where people with the surname Brady were more likely to suffer from this heart defect called bradycardia or bradycardia. You were having none of it.
Nominative determinism.
That's it, yeah. You having none of that,
Yeah.
the side of things.
Cynical as always.
And then shortly afterwards, bird flu is going around the world. And the first case of a human catching bird flu was discovered in the UK.
Recently?
Shortly after the last podcast, so just before Christmas, I believe. And it was none other than Alan Gosling, a man who keeps hundreds of geese. No, not geese, sorry, ducks. It would be better if it was geese.
But is that nominative determinism? I can't even say it.
Yeah.
Or is it just always going to happen because he's hanging around birds a lot more? That to me is just...
Well, first of all, his surname's Gosling, which is obviously some sort of poultry fowl. It's a baby goose, but if you want to include ducks in that as well and other types of poultry. So Alan Gosling has grown up and decided to keep hundreds of ducks in his property. Now, is that not nominative determinism?
Be. Okay, yeah.
And then you go the step further and then say, because of that, he then, well, not essentially because of that, but a key factor in that is then he catches bird flu himself. And,
he's just an absolute news person's dream, isn't he? With
it is,
like that.
and you can doubt nominative determinism all you want, but there's so many examples of it that it is no surprise to me that the first person to catch bird flu is Alan Gosling.
I just think there's like so many trillions of things that happen in life that there's going to be instances of that happening. I don't know. It seems highly coincidental to me. But, I mean, there's some science behind it. So it's pretty interesting.
It is pretty interesting. Also, as massive fans of Disaronno that we are, I was chatting to one of our good friends, Mike Poland, who's on holiday at the minute.
He's in chat. Oh. Actually, he said, hola from Lanzarote.
Here we go. So he was on the Disaronnos recently.
Was he?
Yeah, while he's on holiday.
Nice.
And on the menu of where he was drinking, it said Amaretto di Saronno. And DI was a separate word to Saronno.
Right, okay.
And what that means is Amaretto from Saronno. So I Googled Saronno and it turns out that is a town in Italy just outside Milan. And that is how Disaronno got the name by...
Oh, right.
The original name of the drink was Amaretto di Saronno. And then Disaronno took the Amaretto drink and branded it as Disaronno to market to the public. It's like...
it's a bit naughty, really, that.
Yeah, but it's kind of keeps to its history as well, I suppose.
I suppose like the champagne thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a nod to where it came from in the title. So
I think we've got our AGM location.
Yeah, Saronno. Oh my God, we've got to go there, haven't we? Do a tour of Disaronno.
And then on to Limoncello.
Yeah, Limoncello land.
Sicily.
Sicily. There's only one other thing I wanted to mention, that's something I discovered over Christmas time. I can't remember how I found it. There was a British sitcom that was written in the 90s. I think they even filmed a whole series of it, but they only ever aired one episode, and it was deemed as the most offensive sitcom that was ever written. And it was called Heil Honey, I'm Home, and it was Adolf.
I don't know where this
It was a sitcom of Adolf Hitler and his wife, Eva Braun, next door to a Jewish family. It was a bit of a spoof of like the American sitcoms where they're like banging on the wall saying, "Oh, keep the noise down," and like Hitler's like saying, "No, them flipping Jewish people next door are like making loads of noise again." It's like with a canned laughter and all that sort of thing.
I'm really intrigued to see what that was like, because also the 90s was also like up until I think probably late 90s when the internet started to come along is where people started to get a little bit more aware of what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
And I suppose start to be a little bit more like we're more accepting now, I think, than 20 years ago of various things like different cultures, things like that. Let's say sexuality, whatever. The 90s, the internet really wasn't around, or at least it wasn't as popular. It was quite new. So that's like the last kind of ebbing.
Yeah. That was the last opportunity to get that sort of sitcom out, wasn't it? Really?
I remember there was a program. It was a British sitcom, and you got people like interviewing famous people to do like spoof products and like charities.
Brass Eye.
Yeah, that was really bad. Well, that was like again in like late 90s, early noughties, where they could get away with like framing people saying like stupid shit, and they think they're doing an announcement about charity, and really just making a fool out. And Ali G was another good example.
That's
of
true.
That as well.
Definitely worth googling Brass Eye if you haven't seen it. So the first episode of Heil Honey I'm Home is still available on YouTube to watch.
Serious?
Yeah. It's up there.
It was one pilot episode and then it never got.
Well, I think they filmed them all, and then they showed one episode, and it went down so badly that they had to bin the rest of it. That basically sums up my last couple of weeks, really.
I've not been up to too much over Christmas. I do have one thing that happened. I did get a YouTube comment on my YouTube channel.
Oh my god, is that your first comment?
It's not my first comment.
Oh, right, okay.
No. I just actually did pass 1 million views on my YouTube channel,
but no comments,
which was nice. Yeah, I've not had a single comment yet. I genuinely love comments like this because you know when something's just so ridiculous that you can just sense the anger in someone, and you're just like, it's so unreasonable for you to be this angry over something that you know is probably not in like my control. This was the comment, and it was a Discord tutorial about member stats. So just adding stats to your Discord server.
Okay.
This tutorial is so fucking useless. You basically just read the site with your fucked up accent, didn't point out solving one goddamn custom problem. How all these idiots praise you for your content is beyond me. So yeah, it's probably my favourite comment of all time.
So he must have been like really looking for the answer, watched your whole video, and he was like, for
yeah. Absolutely did not get what he came for.
I mean, it's one thing being annoyed, isn't it? And being like, oh, what a waste of time. Let me carry on searching for something else. And then to actually think, you know what? I'm going to give him a piece of my mind.
What I will say, the irony of that comment is the video that he's commented on is one of the most successful videos on the channel. And it's so successful that the developer of that tool has literally used it as the tutorial for that tool. So it's installed on 2 million servers, that bot.
Jeez.
It's like a tutorial on a bot.
Yeah.
He's used it as the official tutorial video for his bot. Yet this guy's come along and said, like, it doesn't answer it anyway.
Have you replied to him?
I can't remember. I think I allowed the comment. I didn't remove the comment from the channel.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't think I replied to him. I'll just use the content.
Just reply with a dick pic or something.
Can I have your phone number so I can send you a dick pic? So what have you been up to the last couple of weeks, mate? Or is that it?
Yeah, I've kind of pretty much covered it. It's chaotic when the nursery is closed and we've got the 1-year-old every single day, all day, every day. Yeah. Basically doing lengths of the corridor now with his little push trolley thing. Right. Just practicing walking with a trolley.
I imagine having a baby is a little bit like a scene from like Kong versus Godzilla, where it's just like smashing up the whole house. But instead of full buildings, it's every piece of furniture in your house.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he smashes up, but he is very interested in everything that he can reach. So he'll pull himself up to a table and just swipe everything off the table then go somewhere else.
I find it hilarious.
Yeah. And at the minute, he's obsessed with going up to the TV stand and doing like squats. So he'll like pull himself up, look at the telly, and then squat down and turn off the skybox with like his finger, and then pull up again and have a look at the telly, and then go down, turn it off and on again. He enjoys that a lot. So,
well, at least he's getting some exercise. That's good.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of squats, more exercise than I'm doing.
You've written on our plan here, coming up my arse.
I didn't write that, mate.
That's your handwriting.
So
top shelf already.
Yeah, we decided to put top shelf early, didn't we?
To get us drunk for the podcast.
Drunk, yeah. Try and make it sound more interesting.
I'm intrigued.
This one has got a little bit of a festive aspect to it.
Okay.
It's not a Christmas drink as such, but it was released during Christmas time. For the benefit of those watching, here's the brown paper bag with the question mark on it.
By the way, before you go into this, because you mentioned for those watching, this will be going out on Audible, it'll be going out on Spotify, it'll be going out on Deezer, YouTube for a video, and it's live at the moment on Twitch. I noticed before you put that bottle in there that it was quite a small bottle.
Yeah, an SB.
Interesting. Yeah.
We might be able to finish it tonight.
Oh, hello.
No, I don't think we will.
Is it small and mighty, though? That's my question.
I think it is mighty. No, my tea.
My tea?
Our tea?
Our tea?
Let's have a look at what it is. G&T.
G&T. So it's quite ironic that I said that.
Yeah. So this is. I'm gonna have to get out my seat to show it to the camera.
All good.
I don't think that came out very well on camera, but this is Marks and Spencer's Gold G and T, but T is spelled TEA, as in like a cup of tea.
Right. Okay.
Shake and pour over
It looks
ice.
like there's actual gold in that.
Gold flakes floating around in it. A blend of alcohol and gin. That confuses me, first of all, because alcohol is very nondescript. It's like when you read on a can of like hot dogs, like reconstituted meat or something. You're like, what meat is it? Yeah. Infused with concentrated apple juice and M&S Gold tea with edible gold leaf. 18% volume.
Oh, so this is like a shop then, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I reckon
Kind
so.
of.
What
Looks
I will
nice.
say is that I didn't buy it this Christmas.
Last Christmas.
Possibly even the Christmas before that.
Oh my God, we're going to get ill. That's definitely off.
But it's
interesting.
completely sealed.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be fine.
It's just alcohol, isn't
if
it?
we're both
So
ill tomorrow.
we know what it is. Well, let's do it. A gold shot. So the cork-wise, it's got a plastic top, but with like a wooden cork inside.
Okay. What's it like on the nose? Oh. Not a bad sound. An average sound, I would say.
It smells not too bad, actually. It's like quite fruity, kind of gentle.
That smells to me like iced tea.
Yeah.
Like Lipton iced tea.
That's quite a big shot. M&S Gold G and T TEA.
Cheers, mate.
All in one.
All in one.
Well, I'm a bit nervous, actually.
It's 18%. Don't be such a pussy. Ugh. That's off.
It tastes quite fruity, doesn't it?
To me, it just tastes a little bit. What's the word?
Off.
Like very.
Apple. It has got apple juice in it, to be fair. And I felt it tasted quite fruity.
Tastes like leaves.
Leaves. Gold
Yeah.
leaves.
Tea leaves.
Oh, tea leaves. Yeah,
Rotten
it
tea
does.
leaves.
I reckon you're right with the Lipton iced tea comparison. It is a
does
bit like
taste
that.
a bit like that. Yeah, but it doesn't really taste too alcoholic to me.
No.
I don't recommend that drink.
Do you not?
No. Mate, it might be better with like a tonic or something, or like something fizzy. We had a chippy tea
Oh, yeah.
for tea tonight.
Yeah.
And I had sausage, chips and gravy. I was going to make some beans with it because I don't like buying the beans.
How have you gone from this would be nice with tonic to having, we had chips, sausage and beans?
What was I gonna say? You've literally just thrown my chain of thought.
You went
It was-
immediately from like, this would be really nice with tonic. In fact, we did have a chippy tea with
Tea?
sausage. Beans.
Well, there was a reason. I've forgotten now.
Nothing to do with Lipton iced tea or anything.
No. Oh, that was it. Yeah. And she rung me up and she said, "Do you want some pop?" I was like, "All right, I'll have
Very
an
northern.
iron brew, please." They didn't have iron brew because we're not in Scotland.
Yeah.
Have they got dandelion and burdock?
Oh, yeah.
And she said yes. So I've got a can of that.
Yeah.
We could have
Gold G&T.
gold G and T
with D&B.
D&B.
G&T and D&B.
That is an option.
It's worth trying, isn't it?
Yeah,
For a
maybe
laugh.
halfway through the podcast.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right, we're on to headliners.
Right, I've got 3 headlines.
Before we go, what was your methodology?
I had 2 saved.
Oh,
In
right.
fact, I had 3 saved, but
Oh,
one
so
of
you're
them...
curating them now.
Sort of. I had 3 saved and one of them was weak. So I kept 2 of them and
you binned them
Googled
off,
another
nice.
one. So here we go.
And you don't know what these are about.
Well, I think the headlines give it away a little bit, but...
We'll see. I'll be the judge of that.
Right, number 1. Noah's Ark impounded in Ipswich for not having paperwork to say it's seaworthy. Number 2, town where families are required to remove their appendix before moving there. And number 3, man left in stitches after finding X-rated business card under the floorboards.
Left in stitches. I think that last one. I'm curious about that last one. Let's go with that one.
Cool. Okay. Man left in stitches after finding X-rated business card under the floorboards. I think you jumped on the word stitches and assumed that he was getting stitches, like physical stitches. Okay. I'm not sure that's the case.
Okay.
What is it? Imgur, the like social media thing?
Imgur.
Imgur.
Yeah.
Imgur. Imgur users have been left very amused after a man shared his friend's unusual discovery in a post on the site. A rather old-looking business card for one Percy Longprong.
There aren't many Percys around these days, but if you're going to be called Percy, you might as well have a surname Long Prong.
Does sound like quite a Victorian porn star name, doesn't it? Or something?
Yeah.
So a rather old-looking business card for one Percy Longprong was found underneath the floorboards while work was being carried out in the house. The eyebrow-raising find is said to have been made by a restorer working on a property. Post online by a username Richard Attenborough, like B-R-U-H, bruh, Attenborough.
It's like the woke version of David Attenborough.
Yeah. Said, friend works as a restorer, just found this under the floorboards of old properties working on. Alongside this, a photo of the business card itself was shared, which promises that Percy's services are satisfaction guaranteed and states that he requires cash before mounting. There's a photo of the card here. It says, maidens treated gently, spinsters delighted. Extra attention given to neglected married women. Reduced terms to young parties. Satisfaction guaranteed. Reduced terms to young parties sounds a bit sinister, doesn't it?
It does a little bit. I guess it's just cheaper, isn't it?
Yeah.
Literally a student
discount, yeah. Widows a speciality. Please turn over for price list. Back of the card features a price list for his numerous sexy services, which include various positions, a womb stretch.
There's a price list per position.
Well, I'll show you in a sec. It includes various positions, a womb stretch, hourly rates, 10 shillings per hour. And additional costs for things such as saliva exchange, a bubble shake, and Vaseline brackets if needed. People have had lots of thoughts about the card, with more than 300 people commenting on the post. Muff dive, 5 shillings.
5 shillings. Right, okay.
Tongue bath, I think is one, 12 shillings.
Okay. Yeah.
Womb stretch, 7 shillings. Time rates, you've got per hour or all night. And under all night, you've got 2 times guaranteed. And then
I love the way he's not sure that he's going to get more than 2. So
listen to these extras at the bottom. The saliva exchange, the French tickler, the finger diddle, and whips and scourges. 3 strokes.
It sounds like a bunch of witches making some potions together.
I reckon you go for a womb stretch with a finger diddle.
I was quite alarmed by the fact that he says he treats maidens more gently.
Yeah.
What does that mean he does to everyone else?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That was actually, I think I picked the right one.
Yeah, you did. One person commented, that is male prostitution with class. Another one commented, do not Google what the services are. I lost my cookies doing that. Others were convinced the card wasn't actually real and was just a prank, as there are no contact details on it. Whether it's real or not, the card certainly kept everyone entertained and even has since been shared onto Reddit, where more people are enjoying the content.
That was incredible. That was way better than I thought it would be.
And look at the card as well. Like, you see a picture, it looks so vintage. It does look like properly Victorian.
I think it's my favourite segment headliner.
Yeah, it is good, isn't it?
It really opens our eyes up to proper culture, that, doesn't
it?
Yeah. Dominating the news in the UK, and we did predict this. We as I say, we broke this last time. The news.
We always do.
Yeah, we always just pick the Guardian to this.
Our rivals,
fierce rivals, I might add.
Yeah,
we broke the news that the cheese and wine party with Boris Johnson and his pals.
Yeah.
At the time, it wasn't clear that he was there, even though I think everyone probably knew that he was. I think what's happened is whoever's releasing the information seems to be releasing it.
It's like a drip feed.
Yeah. So it's almost like they're letting people make rods for their own backs.
Absolutely.
Which I like.
Yeah.
So it's come out that he was there. There was 100 people that were invited via email. So it was pre-planned.
Yeah.
And it was along the lines of bring your own booze.
I think explicitly bring your own booze, over 100 people invited to make the most of the nice weather.
And 30 people turned up, at least, including Boris Johnson and his missus. Mm-hmm. They weren't social distancing.
In the garden of number 10, wasn't it?
Garden of number 10, which is deceptively big.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the front of number 10, you think, there's nothing. He's got a little backyard where maybe he just has a little cigarette or something like that.
And you see that cat
massive.
as well. There's a cat that lives at number 10. It's always out the front. You think, why would you be out the front? Like, you got a great garden out the back. I don't understand.
Public goes through waves, don't they, where they look for things to question the government on and to criticise and all this. And I understand it, but the main issue is that people were being told they couldn't even see a relative. They couldn't leave their house unless they were exercising. That was a gig, right? Yet these guys are in Downing Street, quite literally having a party, but then they're trying to play it off as a business meeting. Now, if you've got an email inviting you to bring your own booze to a pre-planned event like that, it's clearly not a business meeting at that point. So,
because although they were told to bring their own booze, apparently there was still a stand, a long table with wine, like red wine, rosé, white wine, and a few beers on there as well, or something as well. So there was a selection of drinks as well. People do go to work conferences and things like that where you work during the day and get drunk in the evening, but I've never heard of any work event where you're literally getting smashed. Like while you're there, you don't bring your own booze to a work event, do you?
No,
ever.
No.
So I mean, that's pretty black and white.
But there were people that responded, whether that was between each other or like literally in response to the invite, with the phrase, "Is this for real?"
Yeah,
that was one of the responses. So I think people knew at the time that it was not right. So I get the feeling that maybe what's happened is people have gone, I'm just gonna record this and I'm gonna release this at a later stage.
Yeah,
maybe.
Somebody has. Yeah, this drips drabs stuff of all the parties coming out. Surely it's got to come from one of the contenders to be Boris Johnson's next.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's got to be.
So it's got to be Michael Gove, hasn't it? That guy's a dweeb. If that guy gets into power, I am leaving the UK.
But that photo that came out of the previous garden, not quite a party, I suppose, but like business meeting where there's Boris and his girlfriend and Dominic Cumming. And then further else in the garden, you've got big groups of people as well. That seemed to have been taken from next door to number 10 because that's where the photo angle is from, which is Rishi Sunak's
interesting
place. So, you know, and he's obviously been tipped as a successor. So it could be coming from him.
I have noticed that he's not really been in the news at all.
Yeah, he's keeping his head down, isn't he, quite a lot?
Yeah. But it also makes me wonder if maybe this is all, in a way, like pre-planned, because Boris Johnson's got such a bad reputation by now, and Rishi Sunak, comparably, has got quite a... Yeah. His powder is dry.
Yeah, he's come out of it well, really, hasn't he?
Yeah. So Rishi Sunak, to me, is probably the only thing that could save the Tories from losing the next governmency.
Potentially.
That's a word.
Governancy. Yeah.
Governmency,
yeah. Okay. Everyone was getting a bit psyched up as to how Boris Johnson's going to weasel his way out of this one. And we had Prime Minister's questions like either the day or two after this all came out.
Keir Starmer's done a good job so far.
Yeah, he is good, I think, at putting his questions. You know, he doesn't shout and lay into people and embarrass people that much, but what he does is essentially like lead people down a track and question them to such an extent that they're going to back themselves into a corner. I just think
the quality of his words are so much better than many other people. Yeah, exactly.
He's great. And what happened is Boris Johnson had prepared an apology and hoped that would be an end to the matter. And
this was 2 days ago, right?
Yeah. And after Keir Starmer had done his bit, it's then open to the floor for everybody else in Parliament to raise their questions to the Prime Minister. Everybody who's not Conservative wanted to question Boris Johnson on his character and his reliability and whether there's any truth to the party side of things. Each time he said, I've apologised already and we now need to wait for the inquiry to be completed.
Sue Gray.
That's where she comes in. She's a Cabinet Office member of staff, which means she works for the government, whoever the government is.
Essentially, she reports to somebody that reports to Boris Johnson or directly to him.
Exactly, yeah. In this case, she's investigating Boris Johnson, so the report is going to be made available to the public and to all of the members of Parliament, so then essentially we get to decide the outcome.
Can you imagine being asked to put forward an inquiry about your boss?
Yeah, it's such an awkward position, isn't it?
It really is. Like, what you're supposed to do. You're in the public eye, so there's so much pressure that you're going to have to answer for.
Yeah.
And I know you're not personally, although this podcast does go out in 255 countries.
Hello, Bolivia.
The conflict is, I'm going to answer to someone. I'm either going to have to do it right, my integrity is intact, the public will back what I do, or I'm going to get sacked.
Yeah.
The thing that's making me a bit weirded out by it is that Boris Johnson's really trying to shut everyone down by saying wait for the inquiry, which to me makes me feel like there's going to be some revelation that will come out that he knows about that other people don't.
I'm the opposite. I feel like Boris Johnson is saying wait for the inquiry, almost with a confidence of like, and then when that comes out, there won't be anything in it anyway, so we can all move on. Kind of like, don't have a go at me now, wait for the inquiry. Then the inquiry comes out, there's nothing massive in it. Sue Gray doesn't come out with any massive story. It's kind of like, yeah, he attended this, but they did discuss work, blah, blah, blah. He's already apologised for it. Let's move on. I feel like that is what Boris Johnson's playing for. But the reputation of Sue Gray is very formidable, actually. She's done a few inquiries for previous Conservative MPs, and that's led to them resigning, essentially. So she's clearly good at these sort of inquiries.
Has she ever done one for a Prime Minister?
No, she hasn't. But some high level, like front bench MPs. What's also interesting is she wasn't the first choice to lead this inquiry into the Conservative parties. there was a guy called Simon Case who was the original guy leading the inquiry.
Nominative Determinism.
Yeah. And he had a case that he was investigating, which was all of these parties. And it turned out that he had actually hosted a lockdown party himself.
Oh, God.
So he had to step down from the inquiries. I wonder if his inquiry discovered his own party. He was like, hang on a minute, I did have a party.
It's hard, isn't it? Because everyone wanted to have a little party and a get-together. So it's a very human thing.
It is.
The fact that it's the Prime Minister, the people that are setting the rules, like they've got a duty of care to show an example.
I know it's easy said than done, and it's so easy to sit on the sidelines and say, no, if I was in his position, there's no way I'd have done that. But seriously, if I was Prime Minister or an MP during lockdown, I would not have been attending any gatherings of it's
just so high risk, and it is a dumb thing to do.
It's crazy. Yeah. I did see a funny tweet saying, can you imagine if Theresa May was still our Prime Minister? You can guarantee that she wouldn't have even drunk a glass of Schlur, which is like non-alcoholic wine, in the garden.
I still think that he's on his way out one way or another. If he can survive this, I'm not sure what else can come his way that he wouldn't survive.
I know, yeah. That's the kind of worrying thing, isn't it? Because when you think of people that have been proven to have broken lockdown rules, like Matt Hancock.
Hancock is
he resigned pretty quickly.
Yeah, the first day sort of stood his ground a little bit and didn't really move, but then I guess there was...
Probably given the nudge, wasn't he?
Yeah, I reckon.
And then you had Allegra Stratton, the spokesperson for Boris Johnson, who was caught on camera joking about Conservative parties during lockdown. And she's like, how the hell am I supposed to answer that? She was like, right.
PR lady.
She resigned in tears.
Dominic Cummings.
Yeah, resigned / walked away from the job because of all of his antics. Barnard Castle,
yeah.
And then went driving to test his eyesight. Oh, that's
Dominic Cummings, another nominative determinism. Because he does come.
Look how many kids he's got. Just out of interest. Apparently, her inquiry is due to provide the report next week, I think.
Oh, so quickly. I thought, because these things are normally like months, aren't they?
Yeah.
Typically.
Yeah, so if it does come out next week, you do wonder if how thorough the job's been. But her reputation of leading these inquiries is very strong. So hopefully it'll be a good job. I'm all up for a big shake-up anyway.
Do you think he's going to survive this, Boris Johnson?
If I had to bet on whether he would be Prime Minister by the end of next week or the day after the report's released or whatever, I think I would put my money on him staying in post. I don't think he deserves to be at all. He's lied so many times. He's so unreliable, so untrustworthy. He's the very definition of what you don't want as a Prime Minister, like a democratically voted Prime Minister leading the country. Is the exact opposite of how it should work.
What I don't like is when he's asked the straight question, and all politicians do this, but when he's asked the straight questions, he laughs at people.
Yeah.
That really annoys me, because when people are asking serious questions about serious matters, sometimes and often where he's been the one at fault, it makes me very angry that he can just laugh in the face of that and then still get away with it.
Just shrug things
off
as well.
Bulletproof.
Yeah.
I did see that, what's the UKIP guy? Farage. Yeah, Nigel Farage said something about having a punch-up with him. I'd pay handsomely to watch that.
I saw something about Farage where he was criticising the Australians for this whole Djokovic scandal. Farage was criticising Australia for their tough border control, and people were saying, hang on a minute, that is all you've campaigned for the last 20 years. You built your career on British border control. So next
time we have a podcast, it is entirely possible that Boris Johnson may not be Prime Minister.
Yeah, what are you going for then? By the next podcast, is Bojo still Prime Minister?
If you look at him, he looks like he doesn't want to be in the job anymore. And I don't think we know they're not paid very well. And it must be an incredibly tough job. I mean, putting aside the fact that the guy's a lying knobhead and all the rest of it, he is human with, let's be honest, not the most healthiest of bodies.
Yeah.
So for him to be doing that job now, I feel like he probably is tiring and waning a little bit, and maybe there are weaknesses creeping in. So I think if you're to ask him, does he want to continue to be Prime Minister? I think he'd probably say yes, but only out of ego, rather than in reality, he probably doesn't want to be.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Put it this way, if this doesn't knock him off, I don't think anything will.
Yeah.
I'd be amazed if he gets another term anyway, so it'll be in the next year or two where he's gone anyway. But I'm just being a politician now.
I'm not sure what your answer is. I was going to say, though, he's only recently refurbished his flat with the unlawful donor money that he used to
Well, you want to make the most
of
it, don't you? Especially when you've taken that much flack.
Yeah.
So, no, I would say he's too bulletproof to get through. He's got enough allies around him. Even if some of those are sort of dropping off. I think he's going to survive it. I think it comes down to party loyalties. I think he's got enough party loyalties, even though clearly people are leaking and people are working against him. There's enough of that, and I think he's shown a stern enough hand in the face of negativity to get rid of the people.
Yep.
So he will still be in power in 2 weeks when we've got the next podcast.
Sorted. Right, I'm going to tell you about the Colston 4. You may remember in Bristol during the Black Lives Matter, sort of the peak of the protests and riots and things. In Bristol, they ripped down a statue of...
was it like a man on a horse or something?
Yeah, I've forgotten the guy's actual full name, Colston. But Colston was from Bristol, and he was head of I think they refer to him as the CEO of slavery. In the UK. Yeah. Edward Colston. They pulled down the statue of Edward Colston. They rolled it down the path and pushed it off into the river.
Yeah.
And it was quite symbolic, and a lot of people were going, "Hooray, screw the slavery master."
Black Lives Matter response, which was obviously heard worldwide.
Yeah, so he, back in the day, had got a contract from the British government to essentially control this importation of slaves from certain African countries. And he actually donated a lot of money to Bristol. I think that was kind of how it went back in the day. So you'd have like the Colston School, the Colston Theatre, the Bristol Cathedral every year. The top students from Colston School get invited to go and look at the remains of Edward Colston.
Sounds like a great night out.
Yeah. 4 people in particular who were like the ringleaders of getting the statue ripped down. They were initially found guilty in Magistrates Court, which is the like low level court, but then they took it to Crown Court.
They appealed.
Which is quite common, to take it to Crown Court and actually have a jury decide their fate rather than just 3 magistrates. The offence is criminal damage.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah, isn't it? So at the end of the day,
it doesn't matter what the tone is or anything. It's criminal damage.
Yeah.
Criminal damage,
So
okay.
black and white, you've got 4 people who have ripped down a statue, rolled it into the sea.
Yeah.
Is that criminal damage or not? The jury found them not guilty. What they said is the 4 defendants even admitted to actually doing the act. They're saying, yeah, we did it, but we've got reasons for it. And the jury, based on those reasons, said, we understand that. That's not guilty. The whole point of having a jury is you're judged by your peers as to whether you should be punished or not. So it's not one judge or a group of judges deciding whether you've committed an offence. I think that's a good system, having your peers deciding.
I'm just thinking of like Lewis Hamilton and the rules just being moulded and broken depending on circumstantial thing. And I know that that's how precedents are set, but literally criminal damage has been done there. You can unquestionably criminal damage. The fact that even 1% or 10% or 50% of people could disagree with that criminal damage means that it's criminal damage.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I'm very sort of like, when it comes to law, I'm very of that mind, like, this is what the law says, you've broken it, you deserve the treatment. But you then got to think, in a system where, especially like the Conservative government these days, are trying to implement stricter and stricter laws on like protests and restrictions of freedoms.
Yeah.
It's actually vital that juries, not judges, juries can actually interpret and actually say, fair enough, we agree with what he's done. The public in Bristol had been protesting and requesting for over 30 years that the statue is pulled down or removed, and Bristol City Council had never actually got around to
So they were looking for an excuse, weren't they?
Yeah.
It sounds like they provided a free service.
It does. The council were asked to give evidence in court. They explained and said, yeah, this is the statue. The criminal damage aspect of it, well, it's worth this much. It's going to cost this much to put it back up if we were to put it back up. They actually got an expert in, like an artifacts expert, who was able to prove that the statue is now far more valuable because of the news that surrounded it than what it was when it was actually stood. So they're saying the council haven't even lost money because they still own the statue, and it is like 10 times more valuable than what it was when it was up.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. I think the important thing is really the knock-on effect for the policing bill, which Tories are trying to bring in, which is like they're trying to ban peaceful protests. You won't any longer be able to like glue yourself to roads like we had those climate activists and things like that. What you're doing is you're approaching that grey line essentially where you've committed a criminal offence according to the law, but your peers don't believe you should be found guilty for it.
In a literal sense, you're doing the thing that the law says you shouldn't, but because the rationale behind it might be acceptable.
Yeah. And
it so begs the question in my mind, where do you draw the line? If you kill someone for being a paedophile, which regularly does happen, that's especially in prison, that does happen.
Exactly.
Does that mean that the person doing the murder is less of a murderer or not?
Well, exactly, yeah.
So there's a beaten path that says that they are murderers and they do get still punished. Normally what would happen in a situation is there'd be some sort of mitigating circumstances which would maybe shave 10% of their time off.
Yeah.
But that's it.
And it's just now fascinating to think that it's worth taking a case like that to the Crown Court, because as the suspects, you get the choice where it's going to be heard. And so after the magistrate's hearing, presumably they said, we want to be heard in a Crown Court. This case has highlighted to me how important the jury system is. Of course, by the letter of the law, these people are guilty, but the fact that they've been protesting, not just these 4 people, the public in Bristol have been protesting to have the statue taken down. So if it's in the public interest to have the statue removed and the authorities have ignored you, I would not lock up the people that pull it down. Even if it was a statue of somebody I like. You know, if I was a massive royal family member, or supporter, not member. If I was a massive royal family supporter and somebody pulled down a statue of the Queen or something, if they had legitimate reasons for it, I would understand the value of having a jury system.
So, speaking of the royal family, there's another bit of royal... I say... Because you literally did mention the royal family.
And I might be one, yeah.
And you might be one. Yeah, you probably are, to be fair.
Well, you're going to talk about Prince Andrew?
Yeah, we're going to talk about him.
Andrew Salmon.
Oh, gosh. Why would you want to associate with him? I'm surprised you've not changed your name yet. Prince Andrew Epstein Salmon.
It's got a nice ring to it.
Oh, God. He's in court at the moment.
Civil court, though, isn't it?
Civil court is being... Yeah, so the key difference between civil criminal court is, well, he won't be facing any jail time or anything like that. It's purely about acknowledgement of something that's happened or not.
Yeah.
And then also monetary compensation, usually.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this one is, so he's obviously in court over the abuse of... I can't remember the lady's name.
Yeah, surname's like Guifer or something.
Yeah. She's actually come out and said, and this was today, she doesn't just want money. The lawyers on her behalf have said they want acknowledgement that she's not lying.
Yeah, because he'll be desperate to settle out of court.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And normally what happens when they settle out of court, there's an exchange of money, let's say £1 million, hush money, and she has to not mention anything about it again. But the thing is, if
no
she
admittance
believes...
of guilt.
No admittance of guilt. But if she believes that she's right, and if she is right, and Prince Andrew did abuse her, no amount of money necessarily is going to make up for that. So I think the art here for Prince Andrew, is to offer a lower amount of money, but the least damaging admittance of guilt.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's even possible when you've abused someone.
Yeah, well, he'll have all the best lawyers available to him, won't he?
Yeah.
Another key difference between civil and criminal in this country, and I'm not sure if it's the same in America, because it's an American court case, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
In England, or in the UK, in a civil case, to find somebody guilty, you only need probability of 51%. In that it was more likely that it happened than it didn't happen for a civil case.
Interesting.
In a criminal case, you have to be able to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that the offence took place.
Yeah.
Civil cases are a lot more easy to prove. So if that is the same in America than it is in the UK, he could potentially be found guilty of this, but then if it goes to a criminal trial afterwards, could be found innocent because it might be a lot harder to prove.
Yeah. By which point he's already given up the money and his reputation's damaged anyway. But to be honest, let's be real, the reputation's already horrendous. There is a scenario here where he isn't guilty and he just associated with somebody that was guilty, literally guilty by association.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't believe that. I think the way he has acted, and there's been body language experts that have studied the way he responded to interviews and questions and things like that.
I mean, you don't even need to be an expert to watch that channel.
You really don't, do you?
It's embarrassing.
You know, that must be impossible. I don't sweat. I mean, why would you even say that? The funny thing is that he might actually have to prove that he doesn't sweat in court.
Somebody's just going to hold like a heater above his head or something.
Yeah. He's like, see, I told you. Dry as a bone. The royals have stripped him of his military, I don't know what they call them, like military achievements or military titles. I believe it was something like 150 senior military people from the RAF and so on have petitioned to have it removed, and it looks like they've listened. The MOD, Ministry of Defence, responded by saying it's not a matter for us, it's a matter for the royals, and that's what they've chosen to do, so that it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it seems to me that if the royals are already distancing themselves from him, that it's probably that to me tells me that he's
the writing's on the
guilty.
wall.
Yeah.
If he was 100% sure of his innocence and had convinced his family that he was innocent, they wouldn't be doing this, would they?
I think so, yeah. So because I imagine the first thing is, 3 or 4 senior royals sitting around a table and say, right, between these four walls, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
If he said, well, you know, some stuff went or whatever, immediately it's like, well, one way or another, you're going to get found out. And I think it's quite a funny way they've done it, because they've sort of gradually dropped him out, because they removed him of his royal duties first.
Yeah.
And then it's like 6 months later, right, now it's getting more news time. And the whole monarchy is literally at stake with this. If you think about it, if he's still strongly associated with the monarchy, and this is the sort of thing that entitled monarchy people can do in a modern society, there are going to be more people that start to have the narrative, we need to remove the monarchy.
And also the deep conspiracy theorists, like those that believe lizards run the world and all that sort of stuff, are absolutely convinced that the royal families and judges and other high up people in the world are all paedophiles and run paedophile rings.
Yeah.
And now this has all come out. If he is found guilty, that is going to validate their sort of their opinions, isn't it?
Yeah.
It may even be true. I don't know. But
personally, I think the guy is as guilty as they come, but it's purely just based on the way he's acted.
As guilty as they what?
As guilty as they Dominic Cummings. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he looks very, very guilty, doesn't he, in the interview? I would expect him to be found guilty in the civil court and innocent in a criminal court, or maybe not even brought to a criminal court because there's just not enough evidence to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. We do go into some stories where we think, you know, has wokeness gone mad? Where do you draw the line? Well, Marks and Spencer's have today, I think, changed the name of midget gems to mini gems, so they don't offend midgets, short people.
I'm pretty happy with that decision.
Yeah.
As a fellow midget.
You're not technically a midget, are you? You're just
not technically,
slightly
I'm
short.
just quite short, yeah. I think I'm about 3 inches from being a midget.
When midget gems were called midget gems, surely there was no offence taken by midgets. They weren't like, hang on a minute, you can't call it this. It's just this age and this wave of finding things to be offended by, I think. The timing of it.
Do you think that a single midget has ever been offended by
I don't think
those
so.
sweets?
No. Until somebody says, we're going to change the name from midget gems to mini gems just so people aren't offended. And you'd be like, yeah. I think they might be like, yeah, well, good. I'm glad they're no longer called midget gems. I don't know. I guess they don't want the word midget used as much as...
But doesn't midget have a literal meaning? Obviously, it's got a derogatory meaning sometimes.
Yeah.
But I didn't always
like
see it
technical
as a term. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you gave birth to a child who was technically a midget, would you expect the doctor to say he is a midget?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, what would you use to describe it instead?
What's the health term for it? Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird. To me, that's a PR grab.
Potentially, yeah. I might go and try some mini gems actually tomorrow.
I wonder how long it'll take before they... Oh, I tell you what, though. Buying some packets of those could be quite valuable.
What, before they change?
Before they change, yeah.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Mind you, you can get midget gems from anywhere else other than Marks and Spencer.
Oh, yeah. So it's just... Oh, wow. That's
it's just M&S, yeah. Just changing the name.
They must have... So Percy pigs, because pig is also...
Yeah, Muslims can't eat them, can they?
Can't eat them, and it's also a derogatory term in some regards.
Yeah, police can't eat them.
Pigs. And there are other ways that pigs use... I mean, you're missing the obvious one, but yeah. So are they going to rename them to Percy...
Geese.
Just Percy?
Gary Geese.
Gary Geese. Oh, God.
Newcastle, the richest club in the world, now have a transfer window in which they can make some signings. First signing was Kieran Trippier, right back from Atletico Madrid. Played a lot of caps for England. Played well for England.
I don't rate him.
Do you not?
Never rated him.
Okay. I quite like him. It's not young, though. I think he's late 20s.
30.
Okay, yeah.
29, 30 years old.
He made his debut in the FA Cup for Newcastle. Full-strength team. I think they were at home as well, and they lost to Cambridge. So...
Solid team.
That's a bad sign. So obviously,
Cambridge aren't renowned for their football.
No, they're not. They've got a strong university, haven't they? But
strong, yeah.
Not a great team. Not a great football team.
Rowing, yes. University, yes. Football, not so much.
So they need a goal scorer because their top goal scorer, Callum Wilson's out. I remember all the headlines when they were first bought out by the Saudis, like, oh my God, they're going to go after Mbappe and Haaland and everybody. And instead of signing Chris Wood, the striker from Burnley, who scored 3 goals this year, and he's 29 years old. So the only thing you can say about that is at least they have weakened Burnley, their relegation rivals. So even if they don't ever play Chris Wood, at least he's not going to be playing for Burnley anymore. Maybe that's their plan, is just to buy Burnley's best players and not ever play them. On the other hand, Villa have made some good signings. I've
been very impressed with what he's done so far, Joe. Yeah. It's just, I don't know what it is, whether it's his influence or I don't know, or maybe he's just genuinely a good manager.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but he certainly did a great job at Rangers, didn't he? And he's doing a very good job at Villa. And he's brought in Philippe Coutinho, from Barcelona.
Which is an unbelievable sign. You would never, in a million years, have put him in Villa. No other manager in the world would have been able to bring Coutinho to Villa.
Right. Did Gerrard play alongside Coutinho?
Yes.
Yeah. So he obviously knows how he plays.
Knows he's a good player.
Inside out, yeah.
But I also think it's a part of like spotting the opportunities. With Coutinho, he's obviously not happy at Barca. I know they're paying the lion's share of his wage, and he'll be on an absolute wedge because at the time, 142 million. He was the world record transfer at the time after I think then Ronaldo and Gareth Bale in the 80s, the 80 million mark. He'll be on. I mean, you've got to think that he's probably on like 250 grand a week.
Yeah.
And I know they're paying more than half, so they're probably paying 130, 140,000. How are Villa able to afford that?
That's a good point. I know Barcelona are desperately struggling financially and are desperate to get any money they can off their books in terms of wages. They probably have come to some sort of agreement in terms of splitting their wages, and Barcelona would be happy just to reduce their wage rather than get him completely off their books. So Villa must have...
There is an option to buy at the end of it. I don't know where they're going to find the money to buy him, but...
Yeah, I'm not convinced they'll sign him unless he goes on a free or something at the end of the season. But they have just spent some money, I can't remember how much it was, maybe 25 million or something, on Luca Dean, the left back, also ex-Barcelona, but they've just bought him off Everton. French national player, pretty decent. Certainly an upgrade for Villa. So second half of the season, they're going to have Luca Dean and Philip Coutinho.
It'd be interesting. They should lift them. I mean, you've got to say, wherever they are in the league now, they're probably going to be at least 3 or 4 places higher, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah. They'll be pushing for...
Europa League?
Yeah, I reckon so.
Yeah. This is probably the benefit of being a footballer for so many years in and around all this, all the different people and the networks versus being, let's say, a manager by trade coming into it. Yeah. You know a lot more about the inner workings probably than the average manager does, even though the manager might, technically speaking, know more about the managerial and strategy side of it. Yeah. Although, that being said, as a player, you also experience all those different strategies from the different managers. So there's also argument to say...
Depends how much you take on board, doesn't it, as a player? Whether you just sitting there in the changing room going, yeah, fucking hell, fine, I'll close someone down a bit more then. Or if you're actually interested in the tactical side of things. Yeah. Just one other thing before we move on from football. I think it was a Southampton manager who has put in a request to say players who are signed during the January transfer window shouldn't be allowed to play in the games that have been rearranged from pre-January because of COVID. And I think what they're referring to is, I think they had a game against Newcastle or someone like that was postponed. And they're saying, if Newcastle go and buy all the world's best players in January transfer window, we would have played them without all of those superstars. But because of COVID postponing so many fixtures, why should they be allowed to play us with all of their signings?
It's a fair request, but I think there's a counter argument to that, which is everyone's getting the same risk reward. So, and
also, what if clubs sell players to then buy in players? Like, are you allowed to bring them back?
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Southampton are doing okay though, aren't they? Are they like sort of 13th, 14th or something?
I don't think they're doing as okay as they did last year. But
as okay. Very diplomatic, mate.
They were very okay last year, and not quite as okay this year.
They were very okay about 10 years ago before they became Liverpool's feeder club.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. What a great team they could have had, couldn't they, if they didn't sell everyone.
Yeah, Ricky Lambert.
Yeah. Should we move on to the older goose news? Barnacle goose, the bird that was believed to grow on trees. In the days before it realised that birds migrate, ancient scholars struggled to explain why some species of birds appeared and disappeared as the seasons changed. The idea that these little feathered creatures can travel thousands of miles in search for food and warmth was unimaginable. In his book, Topographia Hibernica, published in the late 12th century, a guy called Gerald of Wales attempted to explain why nobody had ever seen the barnacle goose breed. Now, just before I go on further, Gerald of Wales sounds funny, but at the time he was like this scholar and assistant to like king and archbishops, and he travelled around Europe gaining knowledge to be like the best assistant he could be. So he was seen as like an absolute high-class scholar throughout Europe. In his book, he said as follows: "They are at first gummy excrescences from pine beams floating on the waters, and then enclosed in shells to secure their free growth. They hang by their beaks like seaweed attached to timber. In the progress of time, they are well covered with feathers, and they either fall into the water or take their flight into the free air. I have often seen with my own eyes more than 1,000 minute embryos of birds of this species on the seashore, hanging from one piece of timber, covered with shells and already formed." So what Gerald of Wales actually saw was something called goose barnacles, not barnacle geese. So a goose barnacle is a crustacean that lives in the sea and and attaches itself to rocks. So the bulbous white shells and black stalks of these sea creatures were often mistaken by medieval people for the neck and beak of a goose.
Oh, okay.
The barnacle goose mainly winters on the Atlantic coast of Scotland and Ireland, but in summer it travels north to the Arctic and breeds over there. The fact that the goose was never seen to breed gave rise to this myth, and it spontaneously generated from barnacles. And this legend was furthered by Pope Pius II, who travelled to Scotland in the 15th century, so like 300 years later.
Gathering pace, this vicious rumour.
I heard that in Scotland there was once a tree growing on the bank of a river which produced fruits shaped like ducks. When these were nearly ripe, they dropped down of their own accord, some onto the earth and some into the water. Those that landed on the earth rotted away, and those that sank into the water instantly came to life, swam out from below the water, and immediately flew into the air, equipped with feathers and wings. The legend of the barnacle goose was eagerly embraced by some Irish Christians because it gave them a convenient excuse to eat meat on their plates during the periods of fasting, such as Lent, without offending Christian morals. Because the bird was not born of flesh, they believed it was acceptable to eat the barnacle goose at times of fasting.
Plant-based goose.
Exactly. And finally, however, the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II got involved.
Ooh.
However, he was skeptical of this legend. It is said that in the far north, old ships are to be found in whose rotting hulls a worm is born that develops into the barnacle goose. This goose hangs from the dead wood by its beak until it is old and strong enough to fly. We have made prolonged research into the origin and truth of this legend, and even sent special envoys to the north with orders to bring back specimens of those mythical timbers for our inspection. When we examined them, we did observe shell-like formations clinging to the rotten wood, but these bore no resemblance to any avian body. We therefore doubt the truth of this legend in the absence of corroborating evidence. In our opinion, this superstition arose from the fact that barnacle geese breed in such remote latitudes that men, in their ignorance of their real nesting place, invented this explanation.
I mean, if you don't know that birds migrate,
yeah, it makes sense.
It's fair, isn't it?
It's feasible.
It's a fair theory.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder how many other theories that we have now that we validly accept as being the right reason for things are just total rubbish because we just don't know the real reason for
That's
them.
true, yeah. So for like what we're saying, like 500 years, people accepted that barnacle geese grew on bits of rock and wood by their
Such
beaks
a weird thing
dangling
to say.
down, only because they'd never seen these geese breeding. Pork scratchings.
Pork scratchings. Keeping with the royal theme, the Queen's entering her 70th year on the throne. Okay, it's the platinum something or other. We might get another couple of bank holidays this year.
That'd be nice.
As a result of it, that'd be nice. That's what everyone's really in it for.
What
really,
sort of time frame? Like in the summer or
June? Yeah, summer.
Okay, nice.
That'd be,
that'd be good.
Yeah. They're putting on a real show for it. And I kind of think they're doing it because she is getting on a bit, and it almost feels like a little bit of a last soiree before she leaves the throne. Well, she's like 97, 98 years old. She's really old now.
We have discussed this. Is she, the potential of her stepping aside rather than just dying?
Yeah. In the US, they teach a lot of history about previous presidents and things like that. In America, you memorize the most like recent 20, 30 presidents and you know a lot about that. But in the UK, there's not so much focus on that. What they do in the UK is they focus on important figures in the monarchy. For example, Henry VIII.
Yep.
And so on and so forth.
Yep.
I was never interested in history when I was a kid. Let me ask you, do you know who was the person, the king or queen, before Queen Elizabeth II, for example?
No.
I regard you as a pretty well-educated guy.
But I have openly stated many times that I have no interest in the royal family.
You weren't taught
I don't know who it is.
George VI.
Okay.
He died quite young, which is why the Queen was put onto the throne very early, at a very early age, like 20-odd years old. Where I'm going with this is this all piqued my interest. This is the rabbit hole I went down this week. It all piqued my interest into the monarchy. And the first monarch in 1711 was a lady called Anne. The first one was a woman. And that's what I'm going to talk about today.
Was she Queen Anne?
Queen Anne.
Okay.
One of the reasons why I want to talk about Queen Anne is she was an interesting figure. She wasn't like your typical all-seeing, all-powerful king or queen. She was basically unfit to be queen. Terrible at it. A really bad ruler. Very unhealthy. Died young. I think she was a lesbian. And which
can't be
back
queen
then
and lesbian, can you?
300 years ago, that would have been like a weird thing to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very accepted now. I'm going to read you a little bit about it. And the reason why I know a little bit more about this is because there's a film called The Favourite.
Oh, yeah.
With Olivia Colman,
Yeah.
who plays Anne in that.
Oh, right.
So it's set in 1711, and it's all about the people that were around the Queen Anne to essentially try and prop up some of the decisions that were being made and basically her downfall.
We've gone from having no queen, no monarchy at all. I can't even imagine how the country as a whole has decided to just have a queen, have a monarchy.
I didn't look into that bit.
No, I know. But it's just thinking out loud, like, how does the public or how does a certain group of people decide we need a family that is going to rule over us and have all of our money funneled towards them to rule over us in a posh castle?
Maybe that's next week's.
Yeah. How the hell did we get into a monarchy?
There have been 12 British monarchs since the political union of the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland on the 1st of May 1707. On the 1st of January 1801, the Kingdom of Great Britain and the Kingdom of Ireland merged, which resulted in the creation of the United Kingdom.
Nice.
Okay, so Anne Stuart on the 1st of May 1707, she lasted 7 years and 93 days until the 1st of August 1701.
Did she die?
She did die on the 1st of August 1714 at Kensington Palace, aged 49 years old. I'm just going to read you a little bit about her because I think she was quite an interesting character. Anne became queen upon the death of King William III on the 8th of March 1702 and was immediately popular. In her first speech to the English Parliament, back in these days, they directly, like on a weekly basis, would converse with Parliament.
Yeah.
So it was really common for them to be lobbied, the Queen to be lobbied. She distanced herself from her late Dutch brother-in-law and said, "As I know my heart to be entirely English, I can very sincerely assure you there is not anything you can expect or desire from me which I shall not be ready to do for the happiness and prosperity of England." That was one of the first things she said.
Nice.
Which made her very popular. Pregnancies and issues. So this is for Anne had 17 pregnancies.
Jeez.
Of which 5 were live births. So 12.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Was Dominic Cummings around back then?
None of her children survived to adulthood. So she had 17 pregnancies, all of whom
That's got to be a mental health ruin, hasn't it?
Yep, absolutely. So, I mean, there's a list of them, but a lot of them are like stillborn and so on and so forth. Anne was unable to walk between January and July 1713. At Christmas, she was feverish and lay unconscious for hours, which led to rumours of her impending death. She recovered, but was seriously ill again on March. By July, Anne lost confidence in Harley. His secretary recorded that Anne told the cabinet that he neglected all business, that he was seldom to be understood, that when he did explain himself, she could not depend upon the truth of what he said. I believe sleep was never more welcome to a wealthy traveller than death was to her.
Oh.
She was buried beside her husband and children in the Henry VII Chapel on the south aisle of Westminster Abbey.
Sounds like she started off with great intentions,
yeah,
but it just went downhill quite rapidly.
Interestingly, the assistant to Queen Anne was a lady called Sarah Churchill, right, who was an ancestor of Winston Churchill.
Right, okay.
And was heavily military.
Amazing how these things stay in the family, isn't it, over generations.
When you watch the programme The Favourite, she is basically running the country.
Thing is, if you have had 17 deaths of your babies, like, you're not going to be in any fit state to run a country, are you? But then again, you wouldn't just stand down, so you kind of need somebody like that to guide you through what you're doing.
I think she was known for flip-flopping policy as well. One minute, because someone had spoken to her, like a parliamentary leader of the opposition, and lobbied for one side of the argument, for example, going to war, she'd agree to.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden...
you get the other side.
Sarah Churchill would come on and say, no, we're not doing that or whatever. And all of a sudden she'd just flip it in the middle of Parliament. There's a funny scene in the film where one of the leaders is questioning her on her decision that she'd made literally just a few days before. And instead of answering the question, she just passes out like on purpose. She was a really, really bad leader. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting.
It's kind of unfair that people like Boris Johnson or Queen Anne get to these positions and are so bad at their job.
Underqualified, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no acid test, is there?
No. I mean, you can kind of understand in the royal family if it's like hereditary and you're next in line and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah.
But a democratically voted in leader of a country has got no excuse really, has he?
I agree.
Or she.
I do have some faith though, because I don't believe that Charles is as bad as some of the leaders that we've had. And I also strongly believe that Prince William would be a good leader.
When we say leader though, are you hoping that they would get more involved in British politics than the Queen's ever done? In
the capacity that they have, I think they would do a good job of it.
Yeah.
They obviously have some influence. I'm not talking about like day-to-day policy here. They can override bad decisions, and I feel like William would override a bad decision if needed. Whereas I can't see the Queen really doing that. It's not a popular thing to do in the modern day, is it?
Well, no, because democracy is so important these days. If you had a member of the monarchy stepping in saying, we're not doing that.
Big deal.
Even if it's popular amongst the public, it is a huge deal because you're kind of undermining what democracy is and just thinking, well, in that case, we've got like a monarchy slash dictatorship, and we're only allowed to vote in rules that the public want, that the monarchy agrees with. You don't ever really want to see the monarchy getting involved in politics.
But there's argument to say that is already there by virtue of the fact that they can do that. Just the fact that they can do it means that we're technically run in that way.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder when was the last time it actually did happen.
Maybe that's the next pork scratchings.
Yeah. Should we start to wrap things up? We've not really had much chance to think about what's coming up, but we will have the Sue Gray report by the time the next podcast comes out. We'll be getting closer to the end of the January transfer window, so we should have some signings, more signings to talk about.
Hopefully, yeah. Well, thanks a lot. Anyone that is watching, anyone listen to this on Spotify, Audible, Deezer, YouTube, wherever.
Castbox, that's what I use.
Castbox?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's quite
we
decent.
do have some listeners in like Bolivia.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And
Argentina, we had a few.
Yeah,
I think even Russia, we had one once.
Yeah, we've had some weird
Thailand.
places, so. Although they could just be VPNs.
Yeah, they could actually, yeah.
Right, okay. Thanks a lot for watching.
Cheers, guys.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.